Hey all, welcome back to the channel, and I'm so glad that you're here for part 2 of our discussion about recent Transformers reveals and rumors in the latest GotBot True review. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, please like, comment, share, and of course subscribe. Check out Machinery of Man, the Everything Factor, Transformers Collectors, NL, and me everywhere. And coming close off the heels of both Wonder Festival and New York Toy Fair 2019, I thought to myself, wow, you know, we've actually had an awful lot of reveals and rumors and news since 2019 has kicked in, and I kind of want to address how the landscape is looking for collectors going forward. Now, I thought about simply discussing what we saw at Wonder Festival, and I thought about simply discussing what we saw at Toy Fair, but I said, you know, we've actually had a lot more than that. So in part 1, I discussed everything from the month of January, really, and it started off with a movie The Best Bumblebee and a studio series, EX Drift, though I thought he was numbered, at least here in North America, as studio series 36, maybe? I'm not really sure. We talked about some interesting reveals along the way, like a Golden Lagoon Soundwave, the Titans Return Soundwave in gold colors, and we went up as far as discussing MP44 distribution in North America, which I think is a first and very interesting, even though he comes with a hefty price tag, and the reveal of Toy World's Dark Constructor, and that kind of ended off January for us, for the most part anyway. Well, as February would kick in, we would start to get excited about the impending Wonder Festival and the impending Toy Fair 2019, but the news was far from over. Indeed, as early as February 6th, if not a couple of days before, we started to get a lot of information. Not the least of which were, I guess, teases of 35th anniversary figures. Specifically, Grimlock and Soundwave and Wheeljack using the Evergreen molds, which, or at least designs, which we've seen molds and toys released of, I think in the Transformers Authentics line, if I'm not mistaken. Like, we had a Sideswipe, and we had a Megatron and an Optimus and a Bumblebee, and we had a Prowl. You know, they had slightly limited articulation, very simplified transformations. So are we getting yet another Grimlock? Because we did get a Grimlock in the Authentics line before. Are we getting another Grimlock? Are we getting a Wheeljack? What's happening with that? Or are these going to be kind of full-on deluxe class figures employing that sort of styling? We'll talk about that a little bit later, because there's more to this 35th anniversary than these initial designs would kind of allude to, because we recently kind of had confirmation of at least 4 35th anniversary figures out of Toy Fair, and none of them are Soundwave, Wheeljack, or Grimlock. So I think that's very interesting. But in early January, that was our first hint that we were getting something special for the 35th anniversary. But that's not the only bit of news we had. No, of course not. We also found out about one of the most highly anticipated figures, though I think the reveal was done unofficially and earlier than it was intended to be. I'm talking, of course, about the Transformers Siege Leader Class Cybertron-inspired Optimus Prime. It is a reuse, and a logical reuse, of the Siege Ultra Magnus mold. Now, I'm not a huge Unicron. You know what? I'm not a fan of the Unicron trilogy. Period. There, I said it. I don't like it. I don't like anything about it. I don't like the characters. I don't like the designs. It's not for me. But I do know that there are several fans and a segment of the population that has always loved the Unicron trilogy and has been vastly underrepresented in the fandom. It is nice to see that, in addition to something like the Generations Armada Starscream, in addition to the Classics universe. What's his name? I don't even know his name. I don't even know the guy's name, man. I don't even know his name. Hotshot? Is that it? Hotshot? It's nice to know that we're finally seeing those fans kind of get what they deserve. Here's the thing. It's not for me. This Optimus Prime, this Leader Class Optimus Prime is not going to be for me at all. But I'll say this. I think the inner robot that's based on the inner robot of the Siege Ultra Magnus is going to be fantastic. And it does look very true and accurate to the animation. And the toy for that matter. And I think the larger robot is a tremendous update. Now the original is fantastic. Do you need to update it? I think that's arguable. I personally would say, yeah, sure, why not update it? Start giving the Unicron Trilogy fans the figures that they deserve as well, because though I might be a G1 guy, I'm not one of these kind of whiny type of G1 guys, or I try not to be. I respect the fact that different people come in at different times. So if you're excited for this upcoming Optimus, hey, more power to you. I think you have every, not only right to be excited, but you have every reason to be excited. The Ultra Magnus is great. It's not replacing my Combiner Wars Ultra Magnus, but it is objectively a fantastic figure, and reusing it for this Optimus is going to objectively, I gotta believe, be a fantastic figure. I'll say this though, I do like the fire engine look. I always thought that was kind of cool. At least I think it's a fire engine. Is it a fire engine? I thought that's what he was. Not to be outdone with Optimus news, Toy World reared their head yet again with Knight Orion. It's going to be their take on an Age of Extinction Optimus Prime. Now, I believe it is intended to go with a chug display. Potentially not. It might not. Maybe it's intended to be a leader size. Maybe it's intended to be a masterpiece. I'm really not sure. But I'll say this, it looks very clean in robot mode. And the rumbling that I've heard is that it's actually not only going to convert, but convert nicely. We'll see about that. And apparently it has a nice truck mode. I don't know, a lot of this is kind of hearsay, so take it only as hearsay for now. I know the robot, the pictures we've seen look great. Knight Orion looks fantastic. Let's see how it actually works out and when it finally comes to fruition. Because, you know what, I'm still waiting on some things from Toy World that I haven't seen yet. Like the upgraded torso for my Menasor, for my Combiner Wars Menasor. The upgraded Onslaught torso for the Combiner Wars Bruticus. Where are they two, man? They were shown a long time ago and I haven't heard or seen anything since. Just saying. It's one thing the show teases. I actually want to see some product. Moving on. If you listened to part 1 or watched part 1 and you heard me mention that there was a massive kind of rumor dump, one of the figures that was rumored there was a new Studio Series Dropkick. And I said that that has since been confirmed. In fact, it was confirmed early February that we were getting Studio Series, I believe it's 46, and that is the vehicle mode dropkick. The colors look great. It really does. I like that there's more blue on it because I feel like the helicopter dropkick had too much gray and was really kind of slight. This new one looks a little bulkier for dropkick. Again, it's not going to be perfect because it just turns into a car. The helicopter isn't perfect because it just turns into a helicopter. The actual model has bits of both of those models. I like the look of this Studio Series dropkick, but I'm nervous about how it's going to work out because I feel like it has a lot of elements that to me seem like they could be borrowed from the Bumblebee conversion scheme, and I dislike that highly. I do not like it. I don't think that Studio Series 1 Bumblebee is good. It's genius, but like it's not fun. It's not a fun toy to play with. Studio Series 18, not a fun toy to play with. I never did quite get the Beetle in the perfect mode. I'll say this, that the Clunker Bee apparently does have a pin through the roof section so it doesn't pop off the same, and evidently that helps tremendously. I don't know, I haven't had it in hand, not really that interested in getting it. If this is an entirely new transformation scheme, then you know what, maybe Dropkick will be great. I know the car mode looks great, the robot mode looks great, let's see how the conversion is. If it's based on that Bumblebee transformation, I think if you like that transformation, then you'll win. If you don't like that transformation, I don't think this is going to help the cause. We'll see how it pans out. But then we got our biggest news, our biggest information dump, when we saw revealed Siege Deluxe Class Mirage, and the first thing that people do is complain and say, he has a fake chest. Who cares? Who cares? Because you know what? The fact of the matter is, I think that is bar none the best update. You see, the Classics Mirage, it's nice, it's a great update, but the robot mode is off for sure. It looks lanky. It's not right. The Combiner Wars Mirage, it's the one that I have. It's all right, but he shouldn't be a combiner. The car mode was okay. The robot mode is all right. I done some custom work to kind of at least hide the combiner peg. It's still there, but it's not really usable anymore. It served the purpose. But I look at this new one. I love the look of the head sculpt. If all of the paint apps are on the figure that appeared on the render that we saw, then the robot mode, the silhouette of it looks like Mirage. The car mode, the silhouette of it looks like Mirage. Although the writing on the car mode is in Cybertronian. I think I can look past it because the car looks nice and the robot looks nice. I'll say this, I think the robot looks a bit stronger than the car, but I don't really understand the people that, people complaining and saying, it's a fake chest. We've gotten fake chests lots of times. If the silhouette looks correct in both modes, then who cares, man? Who cares? Would it be nice if the chest wasn't a fake chest? Sure. But if it's going to compromise the look of the vehicle and the look of the robot, then I'm fine with them taking the shortcut. If it works, man, do it. We also saw Impactor. And I'll say this, one of the things that people have loved about the Siege line is that we don't have hollowness anymore. Hollowness has never bothered me. But this Impactor has a lot of hollowness in the lower legs and in the forearms. I think it has to do with the conversion. I am not even invested in Impactor. I don't know the character. I have no connection whatsoever to the character, even though he seems to have a cult following. I can get on board with it because you know what? I love the color scheme and I think the character just looks cool. As a matter of fact, I look forward to learning more about the character. It's kind of like with Bulkhead. Like Bulkhead just sort of has his own following, even though he's not a G1, so to speak, character. I feel like Impactor is the same thing. Now, granted, Impactor has a longer history, but I don't think it's a character that's as well known overall, but seems to have had a real resurgence and popularity in the last couple of years, and I think that that's great to see. You know what I'd love to see, and what I hope we get, I think we might have had a very loose kind of, tease for it maybe, with some of those blacklight codes. I can't wait to see if we actually end up getting a turn. I'd like to have a turn. I just think dude looks cool, man. Now, besides for those two deluxe class figures, who, by the way, both of them won the fan vote, and I was very disappointed to find out that I think they're just going to be released in like wave 4 or something. I thought they were coming out as a 2-pack. I thought that they were supposed to be like a battle pack type of thing. I thought that was the whole point of it. I thought that Impactor was supposed to have like a Decepticon logo, even though he's an Autobot, and there was going to be a story behind that and all of this stuff. What happened to all that? I'm glad to be getting them, but I don't feel like we're getting what we voted for. Not that we always get what we vote for. Looking at you, Victorian, I don't think she quite worked out as people anticipated that she might. She's alright, but I never did dig that green. Anyway, moving on. We also learned of a brand new size class called Commander Class, and the first one to be released in that size class is Jetfire, or Skyfire, if you will. And he comes with this like kind of bulking up armor that makes him look like, more like anyway, the toy version of Jetfire. Or you can take it all off and have more bare bones, and he looks like the animation version of Skyfire. He even has an Autobot symbol that can flip around to become a Decepticon symbol. He looks tremendous in his vehicle mode. He looks tremendous in his robot mode. He apparently stands 11 inches tall, which is taller than traditional leader class figures who were about 9 inches tall. I've always been happy with my leader class Generations Jetfire, and I have said that I felt like the leader class was reserved for bots about his size, but we've made certain allowances over the years with characters like Ultra Magnus, arguably Overlord, arguably Sky Shadow, and I've shoehorned them in there figuring they're not really quite as big. Now, while I love that generation's Jetfire, I do think that having a 11-inch figure is more appropriate. He's bigger than guys like Ultra Magnus, which I think makes sense, but he's not quite as big as a Combiner, who stands at about a foot. I think that makes sense, so I think the scaling is nice. How many figures could be released in the Commander class? Well, I'm not really sure, but I can think of a couple, most notably a Skylynx, just saying. That being said, this is an expensive size class. In the US, it's going to retail, from what I hear, for $79.99. In North America, or in Canada, apparently that's going to be $119. That's expensive, man. That is expensive. Is it going to be worth it? I don't know. We'll see. I do have certain concerns about this Jetfire, like the handle hold things underneath. I don't know how durable they'll be or how thick the plastic will be, how well they'll last. I guess we'll see with time. But I do have a concern that could crack. I don't know how tightly the chest actually pegs in, because I feel like the two sides sort of come up. Is that going to be a problem for articulation when you're trying to move the arms or something? Will the chest come unpegged? We'll see over time. But first impressions have me very hopeful. Will I replace my Generations 1? Maybe. Maybe I'll sell my Generations 1. I don't know. Sell it on the cheap or something. Who knows? I am impressed with what I'm seeing so far. And I kind of feel like I might be in for him, because I feel like he is, you know, being the stickler I am for that G1 animation, I feel like he's the Jetfire that I might very well want. Probably going to have to take the weathering off of his feet, but I'm okay with that. Just to take a couple of sidebars for a moment, if I may, before I reveal the last Siege figure that was shown. We also learned that we were going to get an MP18+, which is an anime accurate version of Blue Streak, an animation accurate version of Blue Streak. Okay, didn't that already come out as like an exclusive, like SDCC or something? I don't know. I think that mold is tremendous. We're getting Prowl like it. We're getting Blue Streak like it. That is an MP mold that I think is fantastic. I love it. If you already have the original versions of that mold, do you need the more animation accurate ones? I don't think. A lot of people feeling very uneasy about all of these animation accurate iterations coming out. Again, it's a rabbit hole. MP is a rabbit hole I didn't jump down. I'm glad I didn't. I really am. We also found out from Flame Toys that we're getting a Farai kit for, I hope I'm saying that right, Farai kit for Thundercracker. I think the Starscream was already shown and probably already been released. Looks tremendous. Thundercracker looks great. Same thing in blue. Now on to the last of the pre kind of Wonder Festival, pre Toy Fair reveals that came, and it was a doozy, it was a biggie, and it was none other than the Titan class Omega Supreme. Now first things first, he comes with a Micromaster of Countdown. Man, I want that Countdown. I want that little Countdown. I think that he looks so cool. Plus Countdown's supposed to be a Micromaster, even though I think we once got like a huge like ultra class version of him or something. It's supposed to be Micromaster. I think that that's great. It's an interesting little addition to put on there. We have some battle damage on this huge Omega Supreme, so if you're down for that, cool. His claw seems to be made of translucent plastic. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Sort of stylized. His upper chest is like a clear, like yellowish color. I feel like it's supposed to be red. I don't really like that, but I do like the bulkiness of him. I do like the molded in detail of him. The alt mode picture, my initial reaction is, man, that's kind of weird, because the track going around the base is really small and the shuttle looks really long, like really tall. It seems oddly proportioned. But seeing more later on, well, I'll talk about it later on. But my first instinct, my first reaction was Rain and Robot mode, bit of an iffy alt mode. That was just my first iteration. I liked it. Everything was there. It was definitely G1 accurate. but I felt like the track should have been a bit bigger, and maybe the shuttle should have been a bit shorter. But it was all there, so it's a viable option for sure. I've talked a lot in the last year about Omega Supreme and how I felt like the official Titan is a bit, you know, kind of too little, too late. Should have been released last year. And a lot of people have opted for third-party iterations of him, myself included. And I'll talk about that more later on. I'll say this though. In the US, apparently he's going to retail for $159.99, which I think is the going rate there for Titans, if I'm not mistaken. In Canada, evidently, he's going to retail for $149.99 plus tax, which I find very, very interesting because I opted for the Weijiang Ultima Guard, and ship, taxes in, everything, he was $293 Canadian. The Siege Omega Supreme, taxes in, would be $287.50 Canadian. I find that very, very interesting. Normally, third-party offerings are way pricier than the mass retail release, and a lot of times I've said, you know what, the mass retail release is good enough for me because I don't need to pay $400 or $500 or $600 for a third party. In this case, the difference is $5.50. It'll be very interesting to compare the two side by side, and I do hope and plan to compare the two side by side. But we have a new wrinkle in that, because I have seen a pre-order in Canada for the Siege Titans Return Omega. Why am I saying Titans Return? The Siege Omega Supreme. I believe the pre-order that I saw was at ages 3 and up for $214.99. Now, I think that's very, very interesting because in comparison to Fortress Maximus from the Titans Return line, from Trypticon from the Titans Return line, from Power of the Primes, Predaking, when we look at the three most recent Titan class releases, if that pre-order is correct, it's actually cheaper than those three. The price has actually gone down. And I really think that this Omega Supreme is definitely worth that price. I can't wait to compare it. He looks so cool, and if there are those of you out there who held off on any of the third-party options and waited for the official, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. Can't wait to find out firsthand though. Hey, how about you? And that brings us up to Wonder Festival. That being said, before I go to part 3, where I will discuss what was shown at Wonder Festival, one last thing that was kind of shown concurrently, so to speak, with Wonder Festival, like it wasn't shown at it, but it was shown the same weekend of, and that was the first trailer for Cyberverse Season 2. I'm not even sure if it was a trailer or a teaser or a description now. I really can't remember, but I know this, that when I saw it, read it, I thought to myself, you know what? Season 1 was, I don't dig the 15-minute format, but what seems to be kind of shown and discussed for Season 2 actually looks interesting and promising for me, even with a couple of surprise characters, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. Just to round things out here, by the way, before we go, in January and February, if you're into the Transformers trading card or game or whatever it's called, was it TCG? There's been a lot of reveals there as well. I'll just sort of cover those briefly to kind of get them out of the way, so to speak. We found out that we're getting cards for Menasor and the Stunticons individually. There were a bunch of kind of like sets of cards, like battle cards and whatnot. We found out that we're getting Ultimate Defender cards. It might have been Defensor. Not sure now. What am I talking about? It wasn't Defensor, it was Ultimate Defender Superion. Yeah, that's what it was, Superion. We're getting Grapple, Warpath, Devastator, and Omega Supreme, as well as Starscream, I believe, and Decepticon King, but I don't know what that is. If you're into the trading card game, hey, let me know what Decepticon King is, or was, because maybe they're out now. Anyway, that's it for part 2. So part 1, we had everything from January. Part 2 were early reveals in early February. And we got some doozies, some big ones so far. Everything from the Toy World Dark Constructor to the official Siege Omega Supreme. From the Ferrari model kits of Optimus Prime and Thundercracker to deluxe classes, Impactor and Mirage. And we were only getting to Wonder Festival and New York Toy Fair now? Wow. What else was going to come? Well, stay tuned for part 3 because Wonder Festival and kind of the days thereafter will be next. And there was a couple of very interesting things to come out of that. Anyway, thanks for dropping by. Thanks for giving me some of your extremely valuable time. You know how appreciated it is. And I very much look forward to the next time that you and I get together for part 3 of our discussion here and have another visit inside the videos.